Thanks for staying up later. DIANE Ladd is with us tonight. Lots of projects upcoming. Let's begin Wild at Heart, because I would imagine that the reaction to your role as Marietta, Laura Dern's screen mother, as you are in real life, must be one that people are constantly reacting to.
They're reacting to it pretty weirdly. It was a great part, and working with David Lynch was one of the great experiences of my life, because he co-creates with an artist. He gives you a lot of creative right. And when I first got the script, it was very different from the way it was at the end, but it was an amazing part.
As it evolved, how much was through Lynch rewriting and reshaping, and how much was through your contribution?
That would be hard to dissect. There's a thin line there between license and liberty, Bob. That when you work with David, he's like a novelist. He directs as if he were writing a novel. He uses the camera as his pen. And he asks you for your own ideas. When you do a scene with David and you get through doing it, you know, he's an artist in real life. And when you finish the scene, you turn and you look him in the eye, and David Lynch is kind of like this Jimmy Stewart or Eisenhower, calm, quiet type of guy. And you look him in the eye, and if you touched real gold as opposed to fool's gold, he sometimes has a tear in his eye. And he is somewhere off in another place for a second and looks at you and says, I want to paint a picture. If he says those words, those magic words, I want to paint a picture, there is no sense in you doing another take, because you cannot put more of yourself or your own vulnerability into it. You've done it for him.
In Wild at Heart, you play Laura Dern's mother.
Yeah.
She's taken off by Nicolas Cage, a young man that you lust after, but then eventually...
She doesn't really. That's a mistaken point of view. The point of view of this actress was that she would do anything to keep her daughter from being involved. She felt that he was lusting after her daughter. And it's like, okay, if this son of a gun is lusting after my daughter, I'll give him a go, I'll give him lust. Even to the point that if she had to go to bed with him and then could turn to her daughter and say, he's nothing, he even slept with your own mother, maybe her daughter would hate her the rest of her life, but she felt that she would save her daughter from getting involved with someone who had the evilness that had been, that the mother had been around people.
So there was no primary attraction between
really.
Your character and Nicolas Cage's character. The whole idea was simply to protect the daughter. The
whole idea was simply to protect the daughter. She'd been drinking a lot on this particular night, and the idea occurred to her that this is an opportunity to corner him. And she goes into the men's room where he's alone, and she's laughing, and she comes on flirtatiously. But she's setting him up to tell him that she does not ever want him getting into the part. Can you see the mouth getting tight while I'm talking to Nick? She does not want him touching her treasure, touching her child.
How much of the relative subtlety of character do you think is appreciated by the audience, and how much is overshadowed by the extreme visual nature and the antics of almost every David Lynch film? When you're putting red lipstick all over your face, kabuki-like, or when you're crawling around on the floor with Harry Dean Stanton in some seedy hotel, people are going to react to that and the visceral feeling they get from that, and maybe lose some of that undercurrent that you're talking about.
You're absolutely correct. When I saw David's film, I saw it 3 times. I saw the screening in Hollywood, and then I saw it in France for the Cannes Film Festival, where we won the Palme d'Or award. And then I saw it for the premiere in Hollywood. And every time I saw the film, I saw a different film. I was in the film, and I saw a different film. As I said, he's a novelist. And the first time around, he's kind of a Renaissance man. And personally, I guess I, too, as an actor, would like to see the picture a little more linear. I would hope that as David makes more films, and he should, he's a genius, as he makes more films, I think that he will be more linear. When an artist is young, whether they're an actor, a painter, or a director, they want to say it all. They're so held back to say it all. And I think David has a tendency to do that. I think he throws the whole kit and caboodle out there. And maybe it's too much. Maybe some people love it. It isn't too much.
My personal feeling, as I watched it, was the first 40 to 50 minutes I thought were brilliant. Some people might have found it shocking, and I understood that as I watched it, and some people might not have been able to handle it, but I thought the first 45 minutes or so were great, not only in terms of visual effects, but the comedic aspect of it was terrific, the development of character, and the storyline was moving right along. And then came a detour, any individual component of which may have been very interesting on its own terms, but after a while you watched the next half hour, 40 minutes, and you said, this is just a bunch of stuff he's throwing up against the wall, and it's all hit and miss, and where did the thread of the story go? There's a section in the middle where Willem Dafoe, whom we both obviously regard very
He's a great
highly,
actor.
He plays this creepy drifter kind of character. And there's a scene where he's menacing your daughter, and not because the action of menacing an innocent young woman is offensive. It's something that can be dealt with. Not because he continually repeats an obscenity, but simply because it, to my mind, didn't go anywhere, proved no legitimate point. That's why it made my skin crawl.
That's a very astute comment, Bob, and I'm glad you made that comment. And I hope that David gets to see it. I want a copy of this show, and we'll send it to David. David, I'm sending you a present. Thank you for saying that. I think all astute criticisms are healthy growth for all artists. And there are a few great artists, which I consider David Lynch to be. And I think it's important that someone with your intellect and observations make these comments.
Criticisms like that
are healthy, kind of constructive
unique,
criticisms.
But it's not unique. That's said all the time of Lynch's work. It's a fairly common thing to be said that the guy's a genius, he has a great creative capacity, and he at times veers so far off the chart that he undermines his own work. You
Sounds like my life.
You think all that is lost on him?
No, I don't think so. No, he's a sensitive human being. I called him a Michelangelo, and I don't think that it would be lost at all. I think he would like to hear that. I want my daughter to have a better life than I did. Marietta does, and so does DIANE LADD. I want my daughter to go a little bit further in life. I want her vision. If humanity could do that with each generation, at some point in time, we might really evolve.
Back in the mid-'60s, you did a film for Roger Corman called Wild Angels.
Yeah, I played Geish. And
a biker girl.
A biker girl, and that's, they tell me that that's when all the girls cut their hair in bangs, blonde bangs this way and straight hair, because naturally I'm a blonde by nature. My brown hair is for a new film. But this picture, Wild Angels, had won a Film Critics Award. It was a Cannes Film Festival selection, and it was an interesting experience. I had a rape scene, which was a very modest scene. No flesh was exposed. I had this sweater down to there, and it was in a church where the body was, Bruce got killed in the film, and they had his coffin there, and the other guys raped me. And the Catholic Church, I'm Catholic, cut some of the rape scene because they said it was too scary, and I got really angry. I said to Roger Corman, you mean my people did this? How dare they?
Through pressure on Roger Corman, they
yeah. And they said, I said, rape should be scary. What, do you want to entice people to go do it? You should make people realize the horror of invading another human being's space and body and life. And they cut some of it. It had an interesting cast. And again, Roger Corman allowed the actors to come forth and improvise, to create. There are a couple of directors I've worked with. Roger, Martin Scorsese, David Lynch were of the realm to let the artist create, you know. A good director, I think, will allow that.
You mentioned Scorsese. You worked for him, obviously, in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, and received an Oscar nomination for your role. What are your recollections of that part? I
lost the American Oscar to Ingrid Bergman.
No disgrace there.
I always say it's not chopped liver. But I won it in England. And Sidney Poitier said, see, the mother country knows. And I won several other awards thanks to Martin Scorsese. That was one of the great experiences of my life, creating Flo in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And then I came to Broadway and did a play, and then they made a TV series of it, which I later came and joined the television series. Polly Holliday had done Flo in the series. She left, and I came in. I didn't know anything about TV ratings. I just knew about reviews. And I joined that show, and I didn't want to play Flo after Flo after Flo, so I created another Southern waitress named Belle. I named her Isabella with the writers. We named her Isabel and nicknamed her Belle and made her a country western songwriter. And my father's hobby was writing songs. My real name is French. It's Lanier or Ladner. And he and I wrote all the songs together that I sang on the TV series.
How did your parents react when in your first movie you're being raped in a church? A few years prior to that you're a Copa girl in some kind of slinky costume. This isn't par for the course for young ladies from Meridian, Mississippi.
Well, my father always had pretty good sound rules. He said to me, Diane, love yourself and try to love somebody else. He said, guard your heart, but don't lock it up. He said, don't be promiscuous, that would break my heart. He said, respect yourself. And the Copa girl, being a Copa girl was a very prestigious thing. It was very elegant. You wore beautiful costumes. In between shows, you sat upstairs so people could, you know, watch the pretty girls. But nobody was allowed to come and talk to you. If somebody came over to your table, darling, people came, it was like they came out of the woodwork, like the mafia was coming out of the woodwork at them. I wouldn't approach that table with those girls.
Stipulating that this is a generalization,
Yeah.
is there something in the Southern character, something in the upbringing and the sensibility of a girl from Meridian, Mississippi that lends itself to flamboyance?
Yeah, I would say that lends itself. And I'd have to ask myself again, what does flamboyance mean? But certainly lends itself to earthy emotionalism. They said that the top actresses of the theater, many of them had been Southern girls, like Kim Stanley, who was one of the great actresses, is one of the great actresses of all times, from Texas. And that's because I think in the earth roots where people are spread out and they reach towards you. Tennessee Williams is a cousin of mine, was a cousin of mine. His name was Tom Lanier Williams. If you look at his writings, if you look at Flannery O'Connor, if you look at the writers from the South, their desire to reach out, to investigate the soul and emotionalism, whereas in the North or in cities like New York, we have great writers, God knows. But if you know, it's more intellect, locked in my apartment, how are you doing next door? You know, we go up this way to communicate. Whereas down south, we reach out next door across the land to communicate. And I think we're raised, or I came from, on my father's side and my mother's side were totally different worlds. My mother came from a very gentle, very society, very aristocratic background, social register, dropout. I didn't want to spend the $10. I needed it for an acting lesson. My father's people were wild and open and laughter and just two people met, fell in love, totally different extremes. So I saw both sides all of my life, and I couldn't understand why the kids whose families sold hot dogs at the drive-in or there's a country club set, why they couldn't be together. So I was always trying to be a catcher in the rye and get people together. And sometimes I did, and then it was like they didn't want to, they wanted me out. They didn't want to be reminded of how they got together. So flamboyance, I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know where your father is. I don't know what he is doing. I haven't seen your father since you were 5 years old. I've told you that before. So please leave it alone.
I can't leave it alone, Mother. Because if this little girl doesn't belong to some relative, then she's Katie.
You are going to be a busy girl. I got a list here of the upcoming projects. Now, here in December, The Look-alike is on the USA Cable Network, in which you play Melissa Gilbert's mother. And then you've got 3 more movies coming out in the next several months. A Kiss Before Dying with Matt Dillon and Sean Young.
Max von Sydow, too.
And Rambling Rose, in which you're reunited on screen with your daughter, Laura Dern, and Robert Duvall is also in that. And then comes Spies Incorporated with Robert Loggia. When are you going to catch your breath?
Actors, I've been so many times in unemployment in my life, Bob, or waiting for that phone to ring. I once did a play about the Jews in the ghetto. It was John Hershey's novel, The Wall, which was one of the great experiences of my life doing that play. I was the only non-Jewish person in the cast. And I remember that 2 characters got out at the end of the play, out of the ghetto, and traveled to the sewer, and were hiding in the sewer waiting for the truck to come and get them. And there had been a mix-up in the days. The trucks thought it was supposed to come the next day. And there was a woman, and this is a true story, that died from the waiting. She had taken every horror, every tragedy. She couldn't stand the waiting. And the actor's worst pain is waiting. You wait to find out that there's a part you can do. Then you wait to see if you can be thought of for the part or take a meeting for the part. Then you wait to see if you get it. Then you wait to start it. Then when it's over, you wait till it's edited. You wait till it comes out. You wait to see what the reviews are. And then you wait for the next call. So it's a spiral of waiting.
You can see Diane Ladd and the Look-alike this month on the USA Cable Network, along with Melissa Gilbert. Thanks a lot for spending a half hour with us.
And Teo Pengalis, too. Teo Pengalis is starring in it, too.
You know, you realize a half hour is not enough for you, so you will come back, right?
You're too good a listener, Bob. I thank you
cold
for your
hands.
astuteness.
No, wait, can you believe how cold these hands can get in the studio? It's like a meat locker.
Warm heart, though.
We got to go. See you later.
Thank you.
You're welcome.